Hello and welcome to our game here with myself, Shane Stapleton and Michael Verney after another madcap weekend. And that's before we even talk about the GA, because it was Garth Brooks season, wasn't it? We were both there.
Yeah, it was unreal. In fairness, I was in it last night. And there's something about the Yanks. They just know how to put on a show. They know how to jazz it up. And I'd love to get his GPS from last night, because he was everywhere. He was baiting across the stage. He was up and down the little aisle in the middle. A great show. And then just even before Garth Brooks started last night, even the news came through that Shane Lowry had won in Wentworth as well. So yeah, unbelievable Sunday, super Sunday without a doubt.
Yeah, I'd say you were tempted to break the crossbars in Croke Park again as an Offaly man when you heard that.
We were going to sit down. If there was no encore last night, we were sitting down 100%.
Can you imagine trying to explain to Garth Brooks, oh, you didn't hear that Lowry and 98 and Jimmy Cooney and the whole lot, no? But he was actually unbelievable. What was your favourite song from the concert? And if anyone was there, like there's 400,000 tickets sold over the 5 shows between the weekend just gone and next weekend. So what, 1 in every 10 or 12 people in the country is apparently going to go. What were your experiences of it if you went to it? So what was your favourite song?
Probably Friends in Low Places is one of my all-time favourites. And even when I knew most of the words. That was a bit of a party piece back in the day. I even loved when he broke out American Pie at the end, which is just something that's not his, obviously, as well. But I would probably know 6 or 7 of his songs really well, and it was amazing. Like, I wouldn't be the biggest fan, but I thought it was brilliant last night, and it was amazing just when you go to a concert like that and realize just how many absolute bangers he has from down through the years, like so long. And even I just thought it was great. All his, everyone that was with him, they've all been nearly there from the start. Like, they're all 60-ish, some of them 60 plus, and they were just rocking out the whole night. Loved it.
Yeah, I have to say my favourite song was Standing Outside the Fire.
Standing outside the fire.
It's unbelievable. If you ever get a chance, if you can't find his music, as in his own versions of his own songs, on Spotify, I don't think he's on YouTube. But if you can find a way, like, he's obviously making it so that if you want my stuff, you can pay for it off me and not your man who owns, what's his name, Daniel Ek, the guy who owns Spotify or whoever else. But if you ever get a chance, look up the video for Standing Outside the Fire. If that came out today, I'm not sure a video like that would come out today. It's definitely a bit off the wall. But anyway, I'm sure there's the best of intentions around it at the same time. Reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off one of these lovely Dublin jerseys. We're going to be talking about the Dublin Championship, the Limerick Championship, so many other championships, and there's a whole host of jerseys that you can get at the website there. 15% off with the promo code OurGame. Also, a reminder, this coming Friday, tickets are getting very scarce at this stage. If you want to go to the coaching clinic where we have Martin Fogarty, Kieran Carey and Matty Kenny, just follow the link. You'll find it at the top of my Twitter feed, which is @ShaneSaint. It's going to be a brilliant evening, and there's going to be so much practical on-field stuff for people to take back to their own team if they're looking to improve their hurling team or their camogie team, and it'll suit people of all levels. So I suppose there's so much that went on this weekend. Steph Curry, the NBA legend, was out in Dalkey at a cafe where I've regularly gone to after cooler training sessions and matches and so on.
You guys go for a cup of coffee after training, yes?
Yeah, do you know the way? Would you like a latte? That's the way we talk out in Dalkey. But there he is, out beside the lovely woman who works in there. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she served us many times in there. But unbelievable. Like, you can't overstate how much of an icon he is. He's, up there with the likes of LeBron and Michael Jordan, with some of the all-time greats.
Unbelievable. And I don't know what it is about Dalkey. Wasn't it out around Dalkey where Matt Damon was during COVID as well? I think he was in, was it Eddie Irvine's house in Dalkey? I think he was staying in, to the best of my knowledge.
Don't know.
I think it was, yeah. I think they were filming a movie or something, and they got a movie. Sorry, they were making a film. I don't know, this whole Dalkey spec is rubbing off on me. I don't like it at all. Very, very funny, actually. Just lastly on Garth Brooks. My father said my sister was coming up last night. She came up with me, my cousin, and myself and Elaine went into it from here. And he just said, "What's so great about that Garth Brooks? Well, she should all be listening to Luke Kelly." I couldn't put in a word there. I blanked out a word. Apologies.
I think everyone copped it. I didn't even have a ticket when I headed over, and by the time I got there, there was nobody around. Everyone had gone in, and I could hear like Let the Thunder Roll and the Lightning Strike in the background. I was like, how am I going to get in? And I was asking a few different people, any tickets going? And some bus driver said, there was almost nobody around. And he said to me, there was some guard walking around there, had a free ticket. And I happened to find that guard, got the free ticket, got in, was let down on the pitch, and had a great old time of it.
An old freebie. Do you know me, Shane Stapleton? Do you watch our game, no?
I had a few people actually later on in Ryan's that night that did watch it. Now, they think you're an ape, but they think I'm the right John.
They'd be right, in fairness.
Led Zeppelin says, excited for the show. Tipperary really heating up. Flash says, good afternoon, lads. Hope you had a great weekend. More comments coming in, and keep them coming. We want to hear them. There's a story that kind of piqued your interest there. It was Kerry GA launching a probe after an under 11 game, I should say, was abandoned. It feels like these stories are just coming up a bit too often when it comes to the club season. You and I love the club, but tempers seem to be running at their hottest at club games when it's not just like seated positions only for people. At a club game or inter-county game, obviously people are in the stands, they're in their own seat. It's very hard to get over at other people. In club games, it's a bit more of a free-for-all.
Yeah, it just kind of strikes me as, Shane, I think we're reaching like a turning point or a big moment in the GA where the possibility of these things happening is going to be removed, or there's going to be serious sanctions in place. Like this was an under 11 match where scores weren't even being kept. And, you've parents or guardians or coaches or managers or whatever just getting way too excited for what's going on. To me, I think I don't know. I'm not sure how the GA are going to take what's going on in Roscommon at the moment, but I think we're probably just going to have to hit the nuclear button on it and just come down to a really, really hard line. Try and move closer to the rugby approach of where there's a serious respect for referee, and you can actually challenge them. I actually saw a brilliant clip at the weekend where a player explained something to the referee. I can't remember exactly where it was, and the referee was like, "Oh, you're right." He explained the rule back to him basically, and he was like, "You're right." And he changed the decision he had initially made. But there's a respect there. Whereas if you say something like that to a referee in hurling or football, they think you're challenging them or undermining them. They bring the ball forward. They give a yellow card. You get that or whatever. So I think we're probably going to be at a stage fairly soon where it'll be a silent sideline because there'll be nobody on the sideline. And there'll be no fans left within it, or no spectators, parents, anything left within a certain area. Maybe it's a case of where the referee will have to call the two managers in at the start of every game and make it the managers or the club's responsibility that they do not have anybody anywhere near the pitch. You've seen club venues, Shane, where, let's call a spade a spade. There's a lot of people very close to the action. Depending on an incident happening anywhere in the pitch, you could run into anybody in the crowd nearly. It's that close, So I don't know. I think it's a case of even planning grounds in future that sidelines are going to have to, the gap between the pitch and the sidelines is going to have to be bigger. There's going to have to be some sort of a restriction zone. Now, am I for it? Do I want to see that? No, but I think we're going to need to see it in time, because the amount of these things that are happening, like that Roscommon incident, that was at underage level, an underage match. This was an under 11 match. It's just bonkers what's going on, and we're just going to have to probably take it out of people's hands and just say, okay, nobody gets within this point of the pitch. I'm not sure it would be hard to implement at first, but it's gone a bit out of control at the moment. And at the end of the day, the referees or their games will not take place without referees. So we do need to protect them. And listen, do they make mistakes? Yes, they do. Of course they do. And I'd be the first one to say X, Y, or Z, but you do still have to, there has to be an underlying respect. And I think the respect is quite low for referees at the moment.
Do you know there's talk in the Premier League about interviewing referees after games now, because people always want an explanation, but I think it's very hard to put, especially if a referee has been running who knows 12k or 10k in the space of a game, and then he has to go in and explain every incident that happened in a game. And think about a lot of the referees, especially at the top level, are very, very fit, but if you go down through the levels and let's say a referee has made his best effort to go from one end of the field to the other for 60 minutes and isn't necessarily the fittest person in the world, or might be that little bit older, it's hard to always make a decision with the clearest mind possible when you've been sprinting around or running around and there's a lot going on. There's hurleys and you have players trying to get an edge on each other. And, it's very hard to stay on top of things. But actually, there's There's an interesting comment from Adrian McGrath here. It says, it's the number of games combined with phones and people being less willing to put up with bad behaviour. It's not getting worse. It's getting recorded. Now, there's definitely parts of that I agree with, but because if you go over the history of the game, and I'm sure like stories you've heard from, let's say, your parents' era or eras from people in previous days in Offaly GA and Bird GA, you do hear about people getting sledged and, the pole of the Hurley down on the back or on the head or whatever over the years, and, brawls on the sideline. And if you go historically in the GA, there used to be some amount of games that were cancelled, abandoned down through the years because there were brawls in the crowd, or a player was soloing up the field and someone stuck their hand in from the sideline and pulled him out over the side. This sort of stuff used to happen. But, in some ways, has this always been happening and now it's getting highlighted more with phones?
Yeah, well, it probably is getting highlighted a bit more. I do think it's getting worse, but it is being highlighted an awful more. And there's no tolerance there for any of it now. You put it up on social media and it kind of spreads like wildfire. It's funny, Adrian left a comment there, and you were talking about even mad scenes back through the years. Offaly played Clare in a challenge game, I think, or maybe a league game in Tulla back in the day. And it's in the Offaly Game in My Life book. Pat Flory documents the story, the Battle of Tulla. And like there was war, and the Offaly players basically were walking back to the bus, and it was like Clare player supporters surrounding them on both sides. And it was, Pat literally said, it was like anyone had moved, there would have been an all-out war probably, but they got to the bus and got away or whatever. But it's just, yeah, you'd hear those things back through the years. I just think we need to be. Probably some people are a liability to themselves, and we need to take opportunities even away from people. I've seen people at matches that are the coolest, calmest, most collected people, and then the whistle blows and they turn into absolute monsters at times. And you'd hear all sorts of vitriol coming from that you just wouldn't hear normally in normal life. They could be the quietest, soundest people. But we're on a thin line. We're on a really thin line at the moment, I have to say, with regards to refereeing. And I think there's going to be a pretty hard stance taken to that in Roscommon. And the reason you're seeing more and more of these stories coming out now is because even referees, I'd say, want to highlight this. Maybe they've been quiet about different things down through the years. Now is the time to highlight it, and hopefully some sort of strong kind of change will be affected as a result of it.
Yeah, we've seen Barry Kelly and David Goff talk in the media recently, and yeah, it's no harm to continue highlighting these things. By the way, John Hegarty is the new Wexford manager. He had great success with Shelmalier, so we'll see how he gets on. We'll start talking hurling now, and it's 9 in a row for Ballygunner. They had a great win over Mount Sion yesterday, 2-11 to 8 points. Now, the weather was terrible. There was a pitch inspection not long beforehand. Like, the field was in bits. Now, I'm not putting that down to anybody in Waterford GA. The weather was terrible, but the combination of the weather on the day and just how sodden the pitch was, it was like 1-5 to 3 points at half time. Like, that's not a hurling game scoreline at all, is it really? And I don't even think Mount Sion scored from play in the first half.
No, 41 minutes, I think it was, until they got their first point from play, I think, yeah.
Well, there you go. Like, I mean, Ballygunner, obviously, and Stephen O'Keefe said this afterwards, that there was a bit of a reputation that they're great lads to win in the nice weather, but they managed to do it on a bruising day here. And obviously,
can I just say on that as well? They're champions, like the reigning All-Ireland champions. They're going looking for motivation. If they need any little small bit, and Daisy Hutchins said it after, said that there was people kind of writing them off or questioning them. Like there wasn't, but
nobody.
But see, the thing is, to prevent against complacency, they obviously have. I think they've gotten the siege mentality probably. Since what they did against Lochmore last year probably showed what they will do to win after maybe Borrisolee beat them in those kind of bruising conditions down in Park Arena. You and me were both there. That's clear in their memories. And Stephen O'Keefe said that they thrive on games like that now and see it as a challenge. And it certainly looks like that. But they will find any bit of motivation they can possible to avoid complacency. And they're doing it pretty well so far.
Yeah, so a couple of side of things here. From what I heard, it seems that Austin Gleeson was really the only person who could get things going for Mount Sion. Sean Collier said Austin Gleeson being allowed to do as he pleases by Mount Sion, taking line balls from everywhere, wides, no notion of going to edge of square himself to engineer a goal, coming to Munskull stuff. So he obviously was trying everything he could to get into the game. And I mean, when you're only scoring 8 points over the course of the game, obviously every player pretty much on that team is struggling to get involved. I thought Owen Whelan, the far more Tagerhead, the big man at centre forward, I thought he was very good. I mean, he's not the silkiest looking hurler in the world, but by God, he wins some amount of ball and showed his value on a day like that. Jamie Gleeson, Austin's brother, did well to win a penalty in the first half. Now, the thing is, like, he was still able to carry on and take a shot, and if that, he should have finished it. Now, I know he just took it done to the head, should have finished it. Then, brilliant save from Stephen O'Keefe for the penalty, but my kind of thought on it straight away is, it's a day for hopping the ball off the ground in front of the keeper, isn't it? Especially to the side where to turn the Hurley over. Now, which is what Stephen O'Keefe did to save it, and it was a brilliant save. And then obviously there was a fantastic save by Stephen O'Keefe from Alan Kerwin in the second half. But yeah, it didn't happen. Ozzy had one or two really, really good moments, but you know, it didn't really happen for them. And when Pádraig Mahoney and Peter Hogan scored the goals in either half, and Desi and Billy O'Keefe scored 2 points each. I mean, you can bring on Billy O'Keefe to score 2 points. He was in the club team of the year last year. You've obviously got a pretty deep panel.
You were saying there it was a day for hitting the ground. I think every day is a day for hitting the ground, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it's a hard ground, it flies off it. If it's wet, like you have no idea where the ball is going to go. So hard for it to stop. I'd agree with you as well. There was a bit of a kind of a half block on Gleeson's shot before the penalty, and just to me, the chance, if you can score while you have the advantage, I think it's huge, because all the pressure goes on the taker. Then you've got a free shot on goal, even when you get a point chance out the field. Give me the point from play over the score from a place ball any day of the week. I just think there's so much more momentum to it. So they had 2 bites at the cherry there. It was a really good save from Stephen O'Keefe, as you say. He put it nearly as far away from him as he could, but it was high. It made it a bit easier. It didn't have to go down low. I think, like even you were asking Aaron Galland in an interview recently, did he consciously start hitting the ball into the ground a bit more? And it was something obviously that he did, and he admitted he did. But to me, like, that's the way to go generally. So much harder for keepers to save. You talk about the Ballygunner strength and depth. Yeah, when you have like Billy O'Keefe coming on, Patrick Fitzgerald was quiet, probably wasn't the sort of day for him. And you can spring somebody like that, and you can spring is it Jake Foley that came on that scored 1-8 from play in the intermediate final on Thursday night. That's the strength and depth that they have. Obviously winning intermediate and senior within 3 days of each other. The conveyor belt is showing absolutely no signs of slowing down in Ballygunner, and they've obviously achieved what only Mount Sion and was it Aaron's Own have done in Waterford before. 9 in a row is some going. Sometimes you kind of think, I think even 4 or 5 in a row, sure, who's gonna beat them in any county or whatever, but to actually keep the wheels on track, keep everybody happy, keep churning things out, prevent against that complacency, it's a fair thing to achieve, and fair play to them.
Yeah, Richard Hogan says Thomas Walsh did leave a goal a lot. I was sure there was going to be a red card when you saw the frenetic start to the game, but ultimately there wasn't. Now, in terms of like Ozzy, he did take a 21-yard free a little bit later on in the first half, where he tried to go for goal from the 21, and it maybe should have just tapped it over, or maybe he thought, and maybe there was talk on the sideline that we're going to have to get goals to win this game, so maybe there was an instruction, but whatever way he lifted it, he hit it and it went into the ground almost maybe 5 yards after him. So it was probably a regulation save after that. But there was like, if he's a glory hunter, then why would he take a short free in the second half for a teammate? I think it was Martin O'Neill to knock over the bar instead of just going for his own score all the time. So yeah, I get it. He gets plenty of criticism at times, and when it doesn't go right, it's easy to have a pop at him. But like, as I said, I thought Waterford were terrible in the Munster Championship, but he was one of the few to really step up in the championship. But you really think that Stephen O'Keefe should get, or Davy Fitz should do everything he can to get Stephen O'Keefe to come back, don't you?
I do, Shane. I put it to you this way: if you're going through the best goalkeepers in the country, club or county, where does he rank? Because to me, outside of Nicky Quaid and Owen Murphy, who are 1 and 2, and maybe even interchangeable on a given day, because I think he's numbered the third best keeper in the country. He just doesn't make mistakes. He's so solid. Obviously has a massive slap of a ball when needed. Can play short puck outs anywhere you like when needed as well. And not being smart, he's huge as well. Did you see, like, he put his arms and legs out to put Ozzy off for the penalty, and it genuinely looked like he was covering half the goal. Just a real intimidating presence.
He's only 31.
Yeah, he's only 31. Like, look at it. Like, if things are all good for Nicky Quaid and Owen Murphy, they'll probably stay playing in goals for their county till they're 35, 36. Look at Stephen Cluxon, stay going till he's the guts of 40. O'Keefe obviously minds himself very well. Listen, he stepped away after the All-Ireland final, the COVID final in 2020. He's 2 years out. It'll probably be difficult to coax him back. But it would definitely be more than a phone call I'd be making if I was Davy Fitz anyway. It'd be a meeting, even if he doesn't want to meet. There was a manager in Offaly one time. It was actually a goalkeeper as well. Fella didn't want to come back hurling. And he was nearly stalking him. Like, he was nearly arriving at his workplace and this kind of crack. And he got him back and ended up winning the county final the same year. But I definitely think Davy Fitz and even Peter Queally and Owen Kelly, I think they all need to have a conversation with Stephen O'Keefe and see if they can coax him back. And that's taken nothing away from Sean O'Brien or any of the keepers that are in there. I just think in this guy, I do think he's probably the third best keeper in the country. And it'd be a phenomenal boost if they were able to get him back. And I think Davy may have called him in 2011 in his last year. I think he was in his first inter-county season was with Davy in 2011. So maybe there's some sort of a relationship there, or the fact that he may have given him a start that he might be able to get him back again. But listen, it's probably a long shot. But you know yourself, even from, should I ring this fella? Should I ring that fella? Will he take a call? Will he take an interview? You'll never know unless you go. So I would definitely encourage him to see anyway and take a punt on it.
Yeah, like you're right though. Sean O'Brien and Billy Nolan, and I'm sure there's other understudies there as well, are very good keepers, but he's just so experienced and he's able to play that modern sweeper keeper thing, take possession off the back line, great communicator, all that kind of stuff. And maybe they'd get Philip Mahoney back in as well. You never know. If they got one of them, maybe they could get a 2 for 1.
Is it a negative thing that their club is going so well in a way? If they were with a club that wasn't performing, they were with a club that hadn't realistic aspirations of winning All-Ireland every year, maybe they'd be more likely to be in there. But they're with a club setup that is, where would they operate at inter-county level? They'd operate high enough. They'd probably operate. They wouldn't be far off the Offaly. They'd probably be maybe up in around with Offaly, Laois, Westmead. Do you know what I mean? Antrams maybe. So if he wasn't playing to that level of club, maybe they'd have more chance of coaxing him in. But I definitely think it'd be something to follow and look at over the next couple of months anyway. Definitely be a call I'd be making anyway.
So ML89 says already looking like Napiershig versus Ballygunner for the Munster Club title. Don't think the others are up to much if they get out of their counties. Flash is saying I'd definitely be finding a way to coax him back if I was part of the Waterford management team. Could get a game at junior level with Ballygunner, perhaps. Adrian McGrath, I'm not sure actually what he's referring to there. O'Keefe is a top-class keeper, some asset to the dish if he comes back, says James Daly. Nisha Waldron, who used to hurl with Ballygunner, so he'd know. Stephen O'Keefe said he won't be back. Maybe you'll expand on that. Ruddle listed at 17 on the programme yesterday, so more game time for him in Munster now, I'd say. Imagine they were trying to win as much as they can, says Richard Hogan. Third best keeper in the country. Come on, lads. Even though he is the GOAT, adds Nisha. Eddie Brennan and James Ryle rolling back the years into Kenny winning another county final. That was Junior E for Greg Ballycallan, wasn't it?
Yeah, Junior E. And I saw some Twitter account saying one of the best things about the GAA is that lads with, back pockets full of All-Irelands will go back and play Junior E. And I was chatting to Eddie about that not long ago, and he's getting as much of a kick out of that as he ever did out of playing senior hurling. And with a load of young fellas who, it's funny, I played senior B with Burr this year, and you're mixing with young fellas that, the world is a different place to young fellas now than it was to us, and you learn from them, you pick up bits and pieces, you hop off them. They see you as the old fella with grey hair in the corner who can't train and is goose most of the time and is picking up injuries the whole time. But it's great old crack, and they knock good crack out of you and you knock good crack out of them. And the couple of wins even we got with the senior Bs and Burr this year were as satisfying of wins as I've had in a long time, and just mixing with these kind of new players and new lads in the club as well. I'd like to go back to one of the comments there. I was laughed at for saying he was the third best keeper in the country, but I'd like to know what keepers the viewer thinks are realistically ahead of O'Keefe. And he's obviously an all-star goalkeeper as well. Remember the saves in the COVID final? That was his last inter-county game. He pulled. Remember the double save from Cian Lynch and Kyle Hayes? Apart from Quaid and Murphy, I tell you, you'll do well find a better one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, when you're playing with the young lads, it's hard to relate to them. I would have grown up with Tamagotchis and stuff like that. They don't know what a Tamagotchi is. The young lads don't. If there are any young lads watching now, what do you think a Tamagotchi is? Put in your attempt at spelling it and then tell us what you think it is. And what are you doing in dressing rooms? Are you still on Snapchat? Because I thought that was gone by the wayside, but apparently all the young people, that's the only way to communicate.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gone near TikTok really, and I'm not even on Instagram. But that seems to. I'm PRO with our own club in Burr, and so I go on Instagram and put up stuff. But Jesus Christ,
I'd love to see what are the searched accounts on the Burr Instagram.
No, they're all wholesome. They're all wholesome, I can tell you. But I could see how you could lose about 3 hours on the thing. These reels just start coming up, and you just could get lost in it. So the
female influencers, is that what you're looking at?
No, most definitely not. Not since I got the ring on my finger earlier this year, anyway. But it's a different world for young fellas now, and I think the likes of Eddie, James Ryle, and other lads get a great kick out of that, and togging out with fellas that weren't even born probably when they were winning All Ireland medals, realistically.
River Power says Tamagotchi. Is it a type of goat from Asia? Conal O'Driscoll says Tamagotchi sounds like an ancient Chinese massage, and it almost sounds like Amakachi there, who's of course
Daniel Amakachi,
former Everton player as well. So let's talk about the Cork Senior Hurling Championship, because things really hotted up over the weekend. There was 3 quarterfinals on. Erin's Isle, because of their performance in the group, Erin's Own, I should say, they're already in the semi-final. So Blackrock beat Inmakilly after penalties, 3-0 on penalties. It took a late Robbie Cotter goal just to get the Rockies into extra time. But when they got to penalties, Alan Connolly, Michael O'Halloran and Tyke Deasy, they scored from the spot, while William Leahy, James Hardy and Josh Bosang, or maybe it's Beastings, their shots were saved by Blackrock goalkeeper Gavin Connolly. So I was just thinking, in the last year or two, there's been plenty of games in Cork that have gone to penalties in the football side of things. I'm thinking Castlehaven, and am I right in thinking, is it the Bars or maybe Nemo, one or the other? There's Castlehaven 2 years in a row played one of those teams in penalties. So Joe, I don't really have a problem with penalties. The more they happen, I don't really have a problem.
Yeah, the problem is if you lose and you're beaten by penalties, and you're beaten a couple of times by penalties, like we'll talk about in a minute. For Ban, we're beaten in county football semi-finals and penalties for the last 2 years running, and then all of a sudden it gets to a Chris Waddle, Stuart Pearce type scenario where there's this outrageous mental block even that you're trying to overcome, and the fear of it going to penalties. River Power just says Enda Rowland is a serious keeper. He is, and he'd be right up in that conversation as well for me. But penalties, listen, there's a certain, like, for teams like the Bars would say, there's so much going on for them with dual players and playing week on, that there's no real time for that to go to a replay or whatever, or for that to be a refix game. So I can definitely understand it. In that scenario, I just wouldn't like an All Ireland final decided by penalties. I'll put it to you that way.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah,
fair drama.
It'd be unbelievable drama. I just think it's at the end of for a climax of a season. I just think it's much fairer to win within the 70 minutes. And if they can't win within the 70 minutes again on after a replayed fixture, go to your extra time, and then if you have to go to penalties, go to penalties. But I would definitely do everything possible to get it decided on the pitch in normal time or in extra time.
Yeah, Nisha adds there, now Tamagotchi, and they live in dumps for you to clean up and die if they aren't fed. So it was this little electronic animal, and you had to mind them, and yeah, basically they do an old doo-doo and you had to clean up after them. Brilliant win for Newtown Chandron. They're in their first county semi-final since 2011 after beating Glen Rovers 123 to 23 points. Cormac O'Brien hit 1-4 from centre forward, and he'd be better known as a back. Of course, Tim O'Mahony outstanding. Cathal Naughton has been huge since coming back from Australia. But for the Glen, they didn't have Hoggy, so obviously that's huge.
Yeah, Asher, a massive loss. Just even the oxygen that would be sucked out of the dressing room, even in the days beforehand, it was kind of well touted that maybe he wasn't going to be featuring. So they put up a fair fight, but like Tim O'Mahony was brilliant from centre back for Newtown, made a couple of great runs at different stages, definitely clipped at least 1 point anyway. And Cathal Naughton, who's been in Australia for a good while, was very, very influential too. He scored 2 points at the end. What side do you reckon they were off?
There was only one side off, left and left.
Yeah, they were both off left. He hasn't lost too much pace either. He was electrifying, and we're talking about the guts of about 15 years ago, nearly, realistically.
Yeah, remember he came on in, was it 06? He scored a goal against Watford, and the headline in the Star was knockout.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, like he was in around 06, 07 where he was making an impact. That's a long time ago. But he made a big impact at the weekend, and him and I'd say probably O'Mahony were crucial in getting across the line there. And a big result for them. Like, it's funny, they were beaten by Middleton in the opening round. I think Middleton are now gone, and Newtown are in the semi-final.
There you go. Hurling 1234 says, what players Ben O'Connor and Ethan Toomey are for the Bars, best players in the championship for Cork. So St Finbarrs beat Douglas. So that would mean a first semi-final appearance since 2019 and just a second since 2009. And I was reading Dennis Hurley's article in the Cork Echo this morning, and just his first few paragraphs kind of summed it up well enough. And he said, it all came down to the width of a crossbar in the 62nd minute. With St Finbarrs leading 21 points to 18 in Sunday's quarter-final at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, it looked as if Douglas's Brian Harnett had been fouled for a penalty, but referee Cathal McAllister had already called play back for a 20-metre free. Shane Kingston went for a tying goal, got some power behind his shot, but it crashed back off the woodwork, and the onrushing Alan Cadigan slid in but couldn't find the target. When the Bars went up the field and the tireless Conor Cahalan landed a supreme point, the Toher men were all but safe, even allowing for late Douglas goal efforts from Kingston and Owen Cadigan, repelled by Owen Keane and goalkeeper Shane Hurley, respectively. So more drama in Cork. It sounds like it was brilliant. Yeah,
sounds like it was an absolute belter of a game. And as one of the viewers said there, and I think this is a fair point. He just says, ML89, the standard of Cork club hurling has been poor for a long time now, but sure is entertaining. Most of the games are a great watch from an entertainment view and usually good scores. Yeah, I put it to you this way. You're not going to be killed to get a score. Like, you're not going to have to, break 4 or 5 tackles and have a hurl broken off you or anything like that. Far from it. There's way more free-flowing games, but they in general are very entertaining.
I'd say you're hated in Cork. You must be hated in Cork.
I definitely not. I'm just kind of calling it as it is. I think anybody that watches the club championship down there would say similar. They usually are very high-scoring games, but defense is definitely not the premium down there. It's the emphasis is placed far more on attack, you'd have to say. And that's the problem that Pat Ryan faces, is getting that real kind of stern, teak tough defense in place over the next couple of years. And it's going to be fascinating to see if he can, because that's a mentality and culture change, I would say. But I'm sure it's something he's well aware of, and it's something he'll go straight after.
Yeah, and Nisha Waldron, who obviously is regularly enough on the show here and was doing the analysis for TG Cahir yesterday in the Waterford final. He said Verney's right, not a tackle to be seen or heard. Now, he went to UCC as well, so that's loaded with a bit of, I suppose, a bit of insight from being down there.
Well, Shane, I'll put you this way. When Gleeson was going through yesterday after, and he got the advantage, like, the head was nearly taken off from going through. Like, that's real miserable, not cynical, but real miserable, dour defending. Do not let an attacker down that channel. Do whatever you have to stop him. And by doing that, that was a goal otherwise. And that was Mount Sion in a county final for the first time in 8 years with their dander up early. And look at the end result. Stephen O'Keefe makes a brilliant save. And about 90 seconds later, the ball is in the net at the far end. And that's what I'd say real dour defenders will do. And that's definitely what Ballygunner are willing to do. But it's not something you would associate too much with the Cork Championship.
It feels like it's the Tipperary man of all people trying to defend Cork a little bit here. Is anyone else and positive? Because Nisha's after adding, it's like a relay race with a slitter thrown in. And Flash, Limerick man, Cork hurling is flat track running with Hurley's. Nisha, of course, being a Kilkenny man. So the people are driving the boot into Cork. They seem happy to do it. And Joseph O'Hanlon adding, no wonder we haven't won a hurling All-Ireland since 2005. So if even the Cork lads are slating it, what chance do they have?
Yeah, no, fair point. Yeah, no, listen, that's the one thing I find fascinating to see what Pat Ryan does with Cork next year, and whether that kind of steeliness that it's been there on occasion, and it's been there on occasions like against Waterford this year, like against Limerick in 2019 when they were totally written off. But that needs to be there every day, and that dour kind of work rate and that no-nonsense defending needs to be there the whole time. It needs to be a given the whole time. Because, like, I'll put it this way as well, Shane. Like, imagine getting a ball and going through the Cork defence, right? And then compare that to, imagine getting a ball and trying to go through the Limerick defence or the great Kilkenny defence. And like, you'd be lucky if you got back out to your position a week later with the slaps you take on the way through.
Yeah, it's true. So that's the Bars are through to the semi-final in both codes, and Castlehaven are still going as well. The three Cahalans play for them. So I'm wondering, could we see the Cahalans against St. Finbars as well as in a final for the Finbars this year? If somebody knows the football draw for the semi-final, please do let us know. So Gerard Cunningham's over the hurlers, Dr. Paul O'Keefe is over the footballers. So they must be juggling things pretty well despite having so many games going. Relegation playoffs saw Charleville beat the Piershig. Dara Fitzgibbon outstanding there. So the Piershig home, the O'Halpines relegated for the first time in 60 years. Champions 18 years ago, and they've won it 3 times. But look at them now. Obviously, that's pretty upsetting for them. Tipperary. So both Thurles and Nina knocked out over the weekend. As a townie yourself out there in Burr, are townie teams a bit soft?
My father would never let me consider myself a townie, because we're on the rural side of the town, and he would slate the townies if he got half a chance. I remember mush is a big word in Burr. That's if you don't know anybody's name, or even if you just be like, well mush, and you say mush or whatever. I remember
it's like saying well lad or something. Well,
pretty much, yeah. Well lad, or as you say in Kilkenny or even around Tipperary. Well, but I remember saying the word mush at home, and my father just going, mush, that's a townie word. So like, I'm probably not the best man to talk about here, but if you look at, there might be a study in it in how resolute rural clubs are, maybe in comparison to, flaky is not the right word, but that there may be a slightly softer underbelly within some town clubs than a rural club. Now, there's a lot to do with that. There's a lot comes into that. In the town, you have so many distractions. There's so many things going on. There's usually a nightclub. There's plenty of pubs. There's lots of things to distract you, going around the town, hanging around here and there, parks around the town. In the country, there's the hurling pitch and the church and maybe a pub on a crossroads somewhere. There's a lot less to distract you. You're probably potentially down in the pitch more, bonding even more with lads. Now, this is just my own thing. Like, how many times is it said in dressing rooms here, we'll have a go at these townies, we'll see what they're made of. They don't want to know about a fight. They're all flash, going around with their top buttons closed and all this kind of, you know what I mean? That stuff is said in dressing rooms.
Whereas in the rural areas, we actually have too many buttons open on the old shirt when we're walking around.
And baler twine instead of a belt. Yeah, exactly. I tell you something. You would have got. I was going in to the concert last night, and I stopped several times and just slowed down and even let the crowd go past you. And it was just a joy to behold some of the characters going in. It was absolutely comical. Some people now look like they hadn't been, or they maybe potentially could have been out for the day.
So is anyone going to stand up for the Cork clubs? They're being slated, I was going to say stand up for the townie clubs, because they're getting slated in the same way that Cork are getting slated here. But it looks like it's just more abuse coming in. Nisha says, is it because the town teams are growing up underage? They have a huge pick, so they win easier as they have most of their starting 15 up to the age, whereas the country teams don't. So obviously you'd sometimes for an under 14 team, you might have a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old. So they're in the school of hard knocks good and early. So there's definitely a point in that. Emma89 says Nina have a woeful dose of flakiness, seem to be never to be able to make any kind of a breakthrough. Flash comes in with something similar, saying they're diseased with flakiness.
It's an awful thing to be thrown at a team, and it's an awful thing to be thrown at players as well. It's the ultimate insult. That's not to say, it just results would suggest that they just have a problem. When the finish line is there, they have a problem getting over it. Yeah,
because I know what you're saying, but like they did win an Our Championship this year, and they came from behind to beat Killadangan, and they lost Barry Heffernan to Cruciate the same day. But we should talk about the teams who won the 2 games. Clonalty Rossmore beat Thurles 118 to 116, and JK Brackens, who are from Templemore and surrounding areas, beat Nina 317 to 119. They were both very exciting games. They were both tight going into the last minute or two, puck of a ball in it. And we might look at this comment from James Daly. Fair play to Clonalty for beating Thurles at the weekend. Serious fighting those lads, and they deserve huge credit. for keeping going. Like, think about it. Conor Hammersley is away in America at the moment. He's been one of their key players. Scored 5 points in one of the games in the group stages earlier this year. Timmy Hammersley, who was playing for Ballyboden over the weekend, he's transferred. And of course, they lost Dylan Quirk so tragically recently. Now, Cathal Burke has come back after a cruciate. He was brilliant the other day. I think it was 5 points he scored from play. It was a late Stephen Ferncombe penalty that decided this game. And he was a little bit controversial. Not everyone was overly pleased with that decision. But either way, they got over the line. Enda Heffernan was good. Mikey Ryan, Kieran Quirk, Ronan Heffernan, Jack Ryan, all very, very good. And SARS, yeah, they were missing Ronan Maher. He came on late on in the game, didn't really get on the ball. Paddy Cregan got a nice goal, but too often just the ball wasn't sticking up front for SARS, and eventually they paid for it.
Yeah, big time. Obviously, Paddy's not involved this year as well, which is a massive loss from the last probably 15 years. And having Ronan out and just to get him back on the pitch was probably an achievement in itself. And to be missing those two lads who realistically have been your fullback and centre back for the last decade, that was obviously a lot to overcome. Now, they would have an awful lot of talent outside of the two lads, but a lot of ball players, shall we say, whereas Paddy and Ronan would be very abrasive kind of players. So they would be missing lads that make big plays, I would say, in games, big match kind of turning plays. And in Ronan, obviously, apart from being able to score from distance, just setting up kind of long range shots and that, they started off the season very well. And it's maybe kind of slowly petered out a small bit. And even Ronan been missing has played a big part in that. But you can't take it away from, fair Clonouty. Like, there's some heart there now, in all fairness, like to stay going and stay going and stay going. And you look at, we've seen games over the weekend, and we'll show a clip here. Just need to get the ball in around the mixer at the end to give yourself a chance, particularly at club level, when just make people, put people in an awkward, uncomfortable situation, make them come out with the ball, just put it in there. Sometimes we overthink it a small bit too much, but 2 huge results for them. And no one would like playing either of them in a quarter-final either. And Tipperary is ridiculously open. Open. It's just like that. Even the last time Clonouty won it, I think they were outsiders at quarter-final, semi-final, and final stage. They're probably even going to be bigger outsiders again this year, just based on the personnel that they're missing. But there's the occasion demands somebody to stand up, I suppose, and take it by the scruff of the neck. And, maybe one of those teams might.
Yeah, and Dennis Ryan came in 2-footed on us there. You might go through that.
He did. He just said, lads, you two muck savages going to Garbrooks. I'll stick to being a contented townie and trips to Primal Scream and Gorillas. I'm not even going to pretend to understand the end of that message. I've heard of Primal Scream means.
I saw them in concert.
Yeah, means nothing to me whatsoever, I have to say. Gorillas, yeah, I've briefly heard of them, I'd say, but I wouldn't know much about it. Dennis Ryan says, bread and jam boys, be bacon and cabbage men. The cliches are there. How come the 2 greatest tip club teams ever were Thurles 50s, 60s and Ross Gray's 70s? That's a fair point, and it's good to have somebody.
He's sold it into us, lovely, hasn't he?
Good to have somebody coming back with the counter argument, definitely.
Yeah. Well, here's one I'll throw out there. Who's the bigger muck savage, myself or Verney? So get your comments in. Let us know. Richard Hogan says for Clonouty, it's about harnessing the emotion of their situation. Geez, it's hard to know what it is about, but fair play to them. No matter what way they get through this season, they've been an absolute credit. To be fair to JK Brackens, like it's been a real breakthrough year for them, because they'd never won a mid-title before. They obviously won that, came third in their group, and if you didn't come in the top 2, you needed to have won your division. No contest. Verney is the bigger muck savage. Great to hear.
Yeah, well, in fairness now, I'd be shoveling muck and SHYT a lot of the time at home, so that's probably warranted.
Yeah, Flash says, Shane, you're a cooler man now. It has to be Vern. Shane, you're a cooler man. Or sorry, definitely Verney, and no higher compliment. There's no bigger mucker than an Offaly mucker. Just look at that hairstyle. To be fair, they're not wrong. No, and I don't even have gel on today, and it's all very Don Johnson of me.
I think we'll have to get like a tagline underneath, just underneath our picture, Muck Savage, and I don't know what we put under yours, maybe. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, one of the lads told me it looks like a butcher's hat.
Yeah, this shows exactly how precious you are. Nisha says Shane also wears 2 gloves when he hurls. Windy. Windy or flaky is the worst thing you can throw at a hurler. He wouldn't go into a dark room.
if it's good enough for TJ Reid, if it's good enough for Johnny Glynn, there's no hassle with anyone wearing 2 gloves.
You're putting yourself in company that you have no right. You cannot warrant. It doesn't warrant you putting yourself in anywhere near that company. You're in another parish.
I'm not necessarily saying it's like with like. Jack Kennedy says, Shane, you're a Dalkey man now. No contest. Verney is the bigger one. Yeah, like I live in Ballsbridge. I do me hurling out in Dalkey. Obviously, I'd be far more of a sophisticated bogger. Anyway, right. JK Brackens, they were excellent. They won the mid and they got through to the preliminary quarterfinals by dint of that. This was a game that Nina Airog looked to have won. 3/4 stage, they were 113 to 9 points heading ahead. So 7-point buffer. You'd think there's no way they can lose this, but they found a way to do it. Now it was very tight going into injury time. I think there was 4 minutes of injury time, and Thurles won a free. I'm pretty sure it was Jake Morris, who'd had a couple of really good moments. Like he looks like he's bulked up nicely and he's ready for big stuff with Tipperary next year, hopefully, as far as I'm concerned. But Mikey Heffernan had a free from the 21, 2 points behind, and like there was 64 minutes on the clock, and so you would have thought that was it. But he must have had a word with the referee because he knocked it over the bar. And you're kind of thinking, Jesus, would you not go for the goal? But there was actually time for a puck out on a play. But the problem for Nina is that it was goal at the other end. Brilliant work from Andrew Ormond, who had a great game all game long. He set up Shane Burke, who finished off an excellent second half with a goal and 2-2 in total. And that was it, game over. But
the problem is with Shane, right? That free, and I'm not having a go at Mikey. Actually, no, Mikey. I went to college with him in UL. The thing is, it's the next play is a hopeful that you're going to get the ball. Okay, this is a guaranteed shot that you have on goal. It also happened in the Wexford final. Now I don't know what message was relayed, whether you had time for another player or whatever. There wasn't time in Wexford, but at least if you take a shot, somebody has to save it. If you put the ball in there, somebody has to bring it out. Whereas if you tap the ball over the bar, like you're hoping you win the next ball. Do you know what I mean? I just think put the ball in there, have a shot. Someone could miss it. It could be a tame shot and it could go over the line. I just get it in there at that stage of a game because you just don't know what's going to happen in that last couple of seconds. Things get nervy and things happen, as we'll see up in Clontibberet in a few minutes.
Yeah, and like as I said, Andrew Ormond is showing even more of the form that suggests he's going to get a call up for Tipperary next year. Paddy Cadell, very good as well. As I said, Shane Burke had an excellent performance and got plenty of scores. Shane Doyle got a couple of important ones as well. Richard Hogan wonders, what way do the quarters go now? There's a draw this evening, probably not the only championship where there's a draw this evening to see how things will pan out. But the last 8 in the championship are Lockmore, Castleiney, obviously the holders, Killadangan, who won it the year before, Toomevara, Clonolty, Rossmore, JK Brackens, Drummond Inch, Killerwan McDonough's, and Upperchurch Drumban. Who wins it? Absolutely no clue. Absolutely no clue. Here's a question from River Power. Does Morris, as in this Jake Morris, have the type of goal hunger killer instinct of Owen Kelly or Lar? I'm not too sure. Seems to take the foot off the pedal after a few points. No, I think it is in him. And I think he's probably, maybe 24 at this stage, give or take. It was probably 25 when Seamus Callanan really started to become a goal machine. He's 23. So he's going to be 24 for the championship next year. He might be, like, assuming Tipperary get, things in order. Tipperary were not good this year and weren't good the 2 previous years either. But assuming Tipperary have Everton right next year and get a 15 operating the way Liam Cahill would like them to, I think he could be a player that kind of really kicks on to the next level. I don't know what you think.
Well, it's funny when you mentioned Lar there. Lar obviously had lots of glimpses in the early years of his career, but he wasn't the goal machine that he became, we'd say, when Liam Sheedy took over in 08, and even carrying that form into 11, obviously, when he got the 4 goals in the Munster final. So
he was 28 in 2008 when he really started to hit that level. So
there you go. And then you were thinking at stages when he got the ball in that probably 4 or 5 year stretch, even when he came on in 14 and hit the post, in the draw in All-Ireland, and even in 13 against Kilkenny in that game down in Nolan Park when he went off and looked seriously dangerous that day before he went off. So like not saying he only developed that kind of knack near the end of his days, but he obviously, I don't know, the penny dropped, shall we say, with him. Jake Morris already has at least a good foundation to work on from that point of being a bit of a goal scoring machine and scoring these brilliant goals and drifting in and find himself in these positions. So there's definitely potential there when and he is mature, and he's even matured a decent bit in the last couple of years. And I'd bet on the penny dropping in the next couple of years and him becoming that sort of player that could take over games potentially.
Yeah. So I threw out a tweet earlier today saying, what was the highlight of the GA weekend, your star player? Deirdre Flynn said, still thinking about that David Tracy shoulder in Parnell. Daniel Boyle says, saw ladies winning the junior championship at the third time of asking by beating a great rival in Warren Point. Star player Tash Hamilton scoring 1-7. That was in the down ladies championship. But yeah, the David Tracy shoulder. So Coola were under awful pressure against Ballyboden heading into the, I think, 3/4 stage of the game, down by 7 points, and then turned it around. Mark Shuda got a goal. Sean Moran blasted a penalty. In between those two, David Tracy put in a huge hit on Simon Lambert, who was coming out with the ball. And I actually not sure if, when you were playing up the hill, we'll say, away from the golf course end in Parnell Park, it looked like the sun was quite low. He might actually not have seen him come in, but it was a big hit. And, one of those ones that felt like it was a bit of a momentum swinger. But the last 15 minutes of the game, you'd say Ballyboden really did kind of run out of gas, or they faded out. Coola kicked on. Was it any coincidence that Con O'Callaghan came on and the performance started to improve from what had been ropey enough stuff before that? Obviously not. I'd also give credit to the likes of Emmett Murphy, who came off the bench and did very well, knitted play together, got a little score or two himself. But Con came on and must have scored 3 or 4 points from play and was very, very impactful. But the thing is, Ballyboden are still true to the quarterfinals. Coola are true to the semi-finals, but it's not end of the season for either of them.
No, definitely not. And obviously, Colin Keeney's still going strong for Ballyboden, and they're
got sent off.
Yeah, he get 2 goals and then get sent off.
I can't remember if he got one or both. He definitely got the first one. I can't remember who got the second one. I might look that up if I can.
Straight red or 2 yellows, Shane?
It's 2 yellows. 2 yellows.
Okay. So he'd be obviously available for the quarter final. But Coola it's not developed a knack or anything like that, but they've been able to turn games around and finish very strongly in their last couple of games, particularly against pretty good opposition. And the prospect of Con coming back, and even you'd imagine he'd start a knockout game. You'd imagine they'd be priming him to start a knockout game, and they used him for a certain amount the other day. But just the thoughts of having him available, and I know it was even a case last year when Kilmacud played him that by all means necessary, they just wouldn't allow Con to go past.
There's Jake Malone setting up Mark shoot it. Mark mishit that one, and I wasn't long reminding him of it after the game as well.
He was absolutely blessed that ended up where it did.
Yeah, and here's the other goal. I think it might have been that's Mark Shuda with the ball there, and I think he wins the penalty. So obviously this is a big turnaround late on in the game, and of course he was pulled down there. I'm not entirely sure. Was that maybe David O'Connor pulled him down? I'm not entirely sure. And Sean Moran buried it into the back of the net. So that was cool getting through there. But yeah, I was just trying to check out the draw for the semi-final and for the quarterfinals. So I'll hopefully come across that in a minute. You might give out some of the details. Actually, no, I have it. Oh no, I don't have it here. But go ahead.
Yeah, I keep flying through the Dublin Championship there. Obviously, Kilmacud Crokes, the reigning champions, had a good win over Vincent's. It ended up 225 to 318. It was level at half time and with 10 minutes to go. But Crokes obviously finished very, very strong. This was in spite of a John Heatherton hat-trick for St. Vincent. So he obviously did as much as he could to stem the tide there. Cormac Murphy, the Kilmacud centre-back, he went off with a hamstring injury, which will probably leave him under a bit of pressure for at least their next game anyway. Fergal Whiteley, obviously. Yeah. Left-hander, played for Cork IT, I think, didn't he? Used to have a yellow Cooper, I think, to the best of my knowledge. This is just a bit of the footage from Vincent's and Kilmacud. That's big head jaw at the edge of the square.
Yeah. You're right about Cormac Murphy as well. You could see him in the corner of the screen for that play there. But yeah, John Heatherton with an excellent performance in the game. But I suppose it was like Brian Sheehy, who's a young full-back and going to be very, very good, as time goes on for Kilmacud Croke. He probably made the mortal mistake of getting in front of John Heatherton under a high ball. He's very good at then nudging into you, and he's just a huge man. And if you're a younger player and you come up against someone the size of him, you are generally going to get nudged out of the way. But Crokes did very, very well to pull away in the latter stages of the game. By the way, I should mention that Derek McBride wasn't available to play at all for St. Vincent's, and I saw him playing against Crave Kieran. He was excellent, but pulled I think it was a hammy that day. Tom Connolly wasn't fit enough to start. He came on late on, but obviously he's not right. So those are two big blows for St. Vincent's, but they were still very, very close, like 225 to 318, not much in it. Alex Considine with a goal for Crokes early on. He was very good at that stage. And then Fergal Whiteley with the goal late on, which was quite decisive before Heatherton completed a hat-trick. So that's Crokes through to the semi-final, but Vincent's are still in the quarter-final. Lucan Sarsfields beat Bridget's, and the Fianna beat Plunkett's. Both of those games were to decide who got through in third place. Basically who got through to a quarter-final versus who was heading into relegation. So Bridget's and Plunkett's will go to relegation, and Lucan Sarsfields and the Fianna, they will go through. So do or die win for the Fianna, but they'd need the Currys and everybody fit, and I know Paul O'D went off injured in one of those games recently. But if they have everyone fit, they can make a bit of a burst.
It's gas, yeah. And obviously the biggest curry of them all, as you said, was in Dalkey this weekend. Spells the name differently, though, in fairness. So I don't think he was visiting his cousins in around what's the name? In around the Movie Road or anything like that.
Yeah. Let me just see here. Comments. Jake Morris, under-17 FAI Cup winner with the town team a few years ago. Huge year for Intercounty for him next year.
We'll love playing under Liam Cahill. We'll love playing under Liam Cahill, by the way. Definitely. Yeah. And he was a mainstay of those 20 and 21 teams. Any
new forwards you see coming through for Dublin as Red Lad? Well, I mean, it's interesting. Someone made a point to me over the weekend that a lot of the players that are prominent in the Dublin Senior Championship are the older players, which would suggest there's not 1,000,001 players coming through. And another thing I heard is, and I won't name the names just yet because it is speculation, that I've heard of a few players that are going to be emigrating to the likes of Australia next year. So I wonder what sort of a pick Micheál Donoghue is going to have. John Hoare says, think St. Finbarrs are the best dual club in the country at the minute. Could definitely win a double in Cork. Better than Slaughtneil. You know, Slaughtneil have racked together a lot of titles.
Yeah, better than Kilmacud.
Ballyboden have won a club All-Ireland in football, and they've won county titles as well.
It's some effort, Shane. Especially
Cooler making a burst at it, hopefully.
Yeah, you never know. Definitely, like Cooler, definitely when you look at even Con's younger brother coming through and the talent they have coming through, and quite a relatively new senior hurling team and how well they're going. Definitely a club that's on an upward curve in both codes. But like Slaughtneil is generally like a lot of the same bodies. That's to me what makes it so impressive. And they were beaten in the football last year, and they'll obviously be mad to bounce back there as well. So which maybe to the detriment of the hurling, you just don't know, and there's a kind of there's kind of unintended consequences of maybe them been beaten and won, going to really go hard to try and beat the Glen and a few more up there this year in the football. But yeah, I'd probably have Slaughtneil. Yeah, just for the crossover.
Yeah, Lockmore, not so bad. Winning a double last year. I wonder, would Naas really establish themselves as that big dual county in the next couple of years? They'll probably have to go up to the senior championship if they're in Leinster, assuming they win again. They're in a final again. We'll talk about how they won the semi-final over the weekend just in a moment. Might as well also, just a reminder that orgaretro.com sponsored the show. Use the promo code OurGame, you get 15% off. Also, this coming Friday, and tickets are running out fast at this stage. We've got that coaching clinic at UCD. Martin Fogarty, Kieran Carey, and Matty Kenny. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. 3 45-minute sessions, practical on-field stuff that you can bring to your hurling or camogie team. Are these true dual teams, or just a club that has two different teams with no crossover? I think that is an important distinction, because when you have more or less the same 15 in both, that really is, there's more to it. You're juggling an awful lot more there.
Slaughtneil and Lockmore would definitely be as true as you can get when it comes to a dual club. Like Lockmore do hurling and football the same night sometimes, and mix training sessions. And I'm not sure if they have the same manager again this year, but they've generally gone with the same manager in hurling and football to make it to actually promote football and hurling equally. So to me, that is the essence of a dual club. I definitely have Slaughtneil right up there as well.
Richard Hogan, any sign of Dermot Connolly on the St. Vincent's hurling team? No, he's not there. The Clare Hurling Championship over the weekend saw round 5 being played. 6 Mile Bridge beat Clonlara. So 6 Mile Bridge were already through. The rest of the likes of Cathal Malone and Jamie Shanahan, but 2 goals for Shane Golden and another one from Brian Corrie get them to win. Clonlara are out of the championship. They're in kind of the no man's land of 4th position, safe from relegation, but nothing else to play for at this stage. Broadford beat Clarecastle 13 points to 9. Clarecastle are in relegation battle for the 3rd time in 4 years. There's 2 relegation playoffs with the respective losers of each dropping to intermediate for 2023. In this game, I'd say Clarecastle are a little bit frustrated. On 59 minutes, substitute Oisín Carey set up James Doherty to finish to the back of the net, but for an elusive goal that the Magpies needed, but referee Joe Mullins judged Casey had thrown rather than hand past the Slitter, and a free out was given. And a lot, can be fine margins with those things because it can be imperceptible at times. And let's see. O'Callaghan's Mills beat Cratloe. Second half goals by Cork Murphy and Colm Cleary were huge there. Fecal and Whitegate 123 apiece, an epic East Clare derby. Fecal needed an unlikely 33-point win to advance to the quarterfinals, while Whitegate were still in relegation trouble no matter what happened. So Cratloe says Adrian McGrath, presumed for the dual team, I should say. Richard Hogan says Lockmore. Let's see, Clonlara are the great enigma of Clare Club Hurling. You've obviously slated them many times over the years. Have to love Ballymacarbery, 4 Mile Water, the Nair, basically all the one club.
Yeah, and Ballymacarbery, are they going for 41 in a row in the women's and the ladies' football this year? I think they are. And obviously, the Nair is football and 4 Mile Water is hurling. But yeah, and it's a lot of them. The Barons, Conor Gleeson, they all play both codes as well. But yeah, like from a Clonlara's point of view, it always mystifies me with the amount of talent that they have. That I think they've only one county title. With John Conlon, the O'Donovans, Tots O'Connell, even when Dara Honan's obviously Clonlara as well. So there's been a lot of talent through, and I'm just not sure if they've got enough out of them. Maybe at club level, at county level, they've got a fair whack out of them. All right.
True enough. I suppose the Limerick Championship is a very interesting one because almost every team can still dream of glory. I was reading a Jerome O'Connell piece just this morning, and basically the headline said that just 1 out of the 12 teams ruled out of contention ahead of the finale of the final group games there.
It's perfect, isn't it? Like in a way, but it's also very difficult to be out of contention in Limerick. Like it's like a Moonies or a Cult or something, like, really easy to get into, as Delboy would say, but impossible to get out of. Like it's very hard to get out of the Limerick Hurling Championship.
Yeah, so Kilmallock, who are champions, and Pierce Doon, they're all confirmed to the last 8, and a remarkable 8 other teams, last 6, can still harbour possibilities of reaching the quarterfinals. Adair and Ahan now, if neither get a positive result in the final round, they'll face into a playoff to determine who drops out of the top tier. But just to go into some of the games, Kilmallock beat Ahan. So Fintan O'Connor was saying, he's coach of the Balbec, he said at times we were really struggling, but look, they're going well. If Ahan defeat the Piershik the next day out, they could actually get into the knockout stages, so that'll tell you how tight it is. Mungret St. Paul's, they hit 124 to South Liberty's 220 there, so just a point in it with Mungret winning. Paul O'Brien scored 14 points, Niall Mulcahy scored a goal, Brian Barry with 3 points. South Liberty's had 12 points from Barry Nash, all frees. Didn't realise he was a free taker. Did he hit them underage? I suppose he did. Tom Ryan, who for a while hurled at me in Coola, he scored 5 points from play for South Liberties as well, and his brother Brian scored a goal. Ken Burns also scored perhaps a goal as well. I think he did. Kildimo Palace Kenry beat Blackrock. So Blackrock have been relegated after 4 straight defeats. But there's a video going around about showing Kyle Hayes' performance over the weekend, and I tweeted out who had given the performance of the weekend, and one of the replies was about Kyle Hayes. So we'll have a quick little look here. I think he scored 10 points over the course of the game.
So all from play, yeah.
Yeah. All from play. Jeez, that sun going here. Look at it. Look at the size of it. And he's just very clever on the ball and always hops it off the ground to get that extra few steps if he needs them. So fair play.
Like a real force of nature at club level. And I'd love to know how many shots he took. I'd say like getting 10 shots away from play in a match is a fair effort, let alone scoring 10 points. Absolutely outrageous, left and right. And there was a couple of times even he broke the line. He's just so powerful, so powerful. He's obviously a marked man at club level, and I'm sure teams are, at times double marking him and really keeping a close eye on him. But every time he got the ball the other day. You have to just deny him the ball. And
Yeah.
one of the best things about him is, when I was looking back through that clip, is the amount of times he was in or around a ruck and came out with the ball and was able to get a score out of it. 3 or 4 times, I'd say, he was in around a ruck ball, and he was the one that the ball broke to, or he broke it to himself. But phenomenal, 10 from play. And it's funny, the way hurling is, he might, like, it's the sort of thing where you mightn't get a puck at it the next day, and a lot of things will go wrong for you, but everything just went perfect for him. And whether it's centre forward or wing back, he's just so dangerous going forward.
ML89, I presume this is reckoning it's going to be a Kilmallock and a Piercing final. Patrick Sweller, another Clonlara. I know they've won one more than Clonlara, but even when they got out to Munster, they were very, very poor. He said one more in the last decade, then he clarifies. So the next fixture to talk about is the Piercing beating Adair 220 to 13 points. Now, Adair could still advance if they topple Patrick Swell next weekend. Patrick Swell had heartache against Doon over the weekend. They had the game more or less won, and Doon eventually popped up at the end. I think it was wing-back Patrick Cummins came up and he got a last gasp goal. That's 3 in the spin for Doon. This game was level on 11 occasions. Without Keane Lynch, you'd imagine he'd be making that edge, but I think that's 3 defeats now for the Well. Real sucker punch at the end. But a draw or victory over Adair, that'll see them into the last 6. I don't think anyone is going to fancy them to win the county title, but getting to the knockouts wouldn't be too bad considering they're without the star man.
Yeah, that was a sick way to finish. Is it Bennett you said your man's name was?
Patrick Cummins.
Patrick Cummins, sorry. He actually got himself in a brilliant position, and he's a wing back, obviously, so wouldn't be, naturally maybe as confident in that sort of position. So he actually kind of fell in possession and still managed to get his shot away and fired into the net. But a sickening one for the Well, because they've left themselves in a do or die kind of a knockout game now. Whereas if they'd won against Doon, they were through already. So a lot of pressure around that game against Adair the next day. And on their day, Adair have troubled plenty of big teams. And without Keane Lynch, they'll fancy their chances of getting a result. And as you said there, if they get a win against the Well, they're through.
Fergus Butler. It'd be interesting to come up with a list of the biggest clubs in the country to not win a senior county title. Get your comments in there. Now, I'm not saying that Doon are the biggest club in the country or anything like it, but they're a team that we feel are on the cusp or shouldn't be too far away. They've obviously been somewhat close, but get the comments in. Ballybrown beats Gary Spillane 21 points to 212. They can confirm a quarter-final spot with a win over South Liberties, but they'd need Kildimo Palace Kenry to drop points to be promoted. By the way, Kildimo Palace Kenry will secure promotion if they beat Gary Spillane next weekend. So 7 of the last 8 points were scored by Ballybrown to secure a victory here. Colin Coughlin was sent off, so was Mark Quinlan for Gary Spillane. Aidan O'Connor and Brian Griffin were very much to the fore in that game. In the Kildare Championship, we already mentioned it briefly. It's going to be a Naas against Maynooth final. So Naas 320, Clare 12 points, and Maynooth saw off Selbridge by 17 points to 15. So obviously much closer in that Maynooth-Selbridge game. Yeah,
without a doubt. And it's like there's been a lot. I know everybody knows that there's been a lot of time and effort put into hurling in Naas, but there's definitely anybody on the ground in Kildare will tell you that Maynooth is becoming a bit of a hurling hotbed as well. So listen, it'd be a monster undertaking to say, that Maynooth could take Naas down. I don't see that happening, but they're definitely a common team and someone, a club that will put it up to Naas in time. Just in the Wicklow Championship as well, it's going to be Bray Emmets against Glenealy in the final. Bray Emmets chasing 4 in a row. They beat Kiltegan 119 to 111. And it was Glenealy 216, Carnew 12 points. So this is kind of a traditional final based on, results in recent years. Is a repeat of the 2021 and the 2019 final. Bray won both of those. And Glenealy last beat Bray in the 2017 final and then did 2 in a row in 18, but haven't won one since. And there was obviously one other county final at the weekend. The Longford Senior Hurling Championship final, Clongish beaten Longford Slashers 115 to 113. And Clongish went a bit of the way with only 14 men, but they were still able to get the job done. Last won a county title in 2019 and they're back victorious again. And then in Meath, the Meath Senior Hurling Championship quarterfinals, Rathdout beat Killeen 123 to 11 points, and Kildalkey had a 213 to 111 win over Kilmessan. It's a fair whack of hurling action there over the weekend. And as you can see from, outside of Longford and Waterford, loads of counties getting to that quarterfinal, semi-final, even final stage over the coming weeks. And we'll be previewing all those games, obviously, over the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, things are going to get very tasty in the next period of time across the country. Nisha Waldron says, I've seen Nace a few times now at underage level too. They're going to be a powerhouse within the next 5 to 10 years. They certainly are. And obviously they won a county title in football last year and pushed Kilmacud Crokes for long spells in that Leinster final. So they'll be looking to get back there in both coats, no doubt. The football championships, like there was some drama in Monaghan, if you want to tee it up, and I'll throw up the video here.
Yeah, outrageous drama. Like we said about getting a ball in around the mix at the end of the game when, like, tipping around and tapping around, just get the ball in there. Clontarf needed a goal to get a draw, and lo and behold, look what happens.
Tis, as what's his name, George Hamilton would say, was an indistinguished period of play there, but the ball got into the net.
Like there's hands in the air celebrating the second shot, and then usually when, a lad is celebrating or something like that, you've missed your chance, but the ball still ends up in the net. And they've avoided a relegation playoff now and are now in the knockout stages as a result of that. The margins are so small when it comes down to that last round. Like as you were saying about Limerick there, so many teams still in the mix coming into the last round. The margins are so tight, and they're obviously very tight in Monaghan as well. But a huge result for Clontarf, obviously home of Conor McManus. But huge result there, keeps them alive, and they obviously, they've shared the last 7 county titles themselves and Scottstown. So they're still in the mix anyway. They could have been in a relegation playoff and facing a game that nobody wants to play in. Now they're on the opposite end of the scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, was it 4 teams are level on 5 points each in a 5-team group? That's nuts. Yeah, Donaghmoyne beating Knocknamullen 3-11 to 1-7. Inniskeen 115, Carrick Cross 10. So that's Oisin McConville, as we said, in charge of Inniskeen. We said that last week. And Latin beat Trua by 1-7 to 4 points. In Kerry, East Kerry didn't have David Clifford, but it didn't stop them racking 220 against Cairns O'Reilly's 111. Like O'Reilly's were in the final last year, and they get spanked here without David Clifford playing. But it is a ridiculous East Kerry team, so it's probably not any disgrace to lose by that amount.
No, it's not. But even to say that they can put up that sort of a performance without the Footballer of the Year elect is worrying, to say the least, for the rest of them. Definitely very, very worrying, because obviously when Clifford comes back, he's going to be the focal point. But they obviously have, as we went through the personnel that they have in Thursday's show, they have plenty of other focal points, even without the main man. And they're going to be really, really hard stopped. And I think, it's gas. People would say like someone like David Clifford, sure, because there's no inter-county, people aren't going to see him or whatever. You have all the, Kerry people that are going to the Fossa games at junior level just to see him, not just supporting Fossa, but going to see him. There's also the chance, if David Clifford's playing the county final in Kerry, which is, a high probability that he will be, you're going to have, 10 to 12,000 showing up for that final, as happened a couple of years ago when he scored that goal where he hit the back stanchion, that outrageous goal like he got in the Hogan Cup a few years back. So don't tell me people aren't able to see David Clifford, or we can't see our stars. I'll put it to you this way. The 3 nominations for Footballer of the Year, David Clifford will be playing with East Kerry, great chance of being in a county final, and loads of eyes on him. TV game probably. Shane Walsh could be playing on TV 4 or 5 times this year if Kilmacud go as expected. So don't tell me that people can't see their county heroes or their club heroes. They definitely can. You just need to get in your car or get on your feet.
Yeah, and as Flash says, Verney speaking the truth. There's he was talked out the other day, but they obviously decided not to use him. And I wonder, are they just kind of minding him at this stage? Maybe they thought, we probably have enough in the bank for Cairns O'Reilly's. Maybe we don't need to use him today. So it's probably a little bit, it's quite responsible to give him that little bit of a break if you can. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but Michael Foley of the Sunday Times wrote a great piece about the amount of people that were showing up at Fossa games to watch him and how they'd never seen crowds like this down there before, because people are coming from all over just to have a peep at him playing for his local club. It's quite fascinating when you think about it.
Well, I'd take a holiday to Killarney to coincide with a Fossa junior game. No doubt about it. Like, if you were able to take in,
that's nuts.
I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him playing junior club football. I think that it'd be worth travelling the 3 or so hours down to Killarney or wherever just to see him play junior club football. Because I'd love to see even how teams go to try and defend against him at that level. And you obviously have Paddy as well, the puppet master in chief, trying to create scores for him too and creating stuff for himself. But he is that big of a draw. He is that big of a draw. Imagine to say, like, as I said, he's going to be the youngest footballer ever to have 4 All-Stars. And like, he's just over the next decade. Like, look at the amount of people that were at Sigerson games this year that he was playing in on miserable Tuesday and Wednesday night, like 5,000 or 6,000 showing up and hordes of people going onto the field to him after. He is the GA's probably biggest draw at the moment, you'd say. He's a superstar.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm shaking my head, but I'm actually agreeing with you. It's kind of ludicrous, but that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Rory Murphy was apparently brilliant. Now, he was a Kerry under 20 this year, but he was great for East Kerry over the weekend. Scored 1-3 in the first half, 1-5 in total. And I wonder, is there a more promising young footballer around, that's under 20 other than him? Maybe you might mention a Canavan name there, but I'd be interested to hear who people think is also a really prominent player. Shane Ryan, the Kerry goalie, he was named as number 1, wore number 30, played full forward, scored 3 points, 2 of those marks. You can imagine him catching marks, all right, size of him. James O'Donoghue scored 1-4, 2 of those from frees. So Austin Stacks, they beat Naguil 14 points to 1-8, so the champions are on the roll there. Dingle beat Spa of Killarney 4-10 to 1-6. Goals from Paul Mikey and Niall Gainey, and another one from Liam O'Connor. Temple Noah drew with South Kerry, so the divisional side recovered from 6 points behind in the second half, with Dylan O'Donoghue kicking 5 from play. Field Rangers beat St Brendan's. Mid Kerry saw off West Kerry 114 to 110. Kenmare saw off Shannon Rangers by 4 points. And Dr. Crokes had a 214 to 14 point win over St. Kieran's. You might take us through the Mayo Championship.
I surely will, yeah. Busy round 2 action in Mayo. And Mayo Gaels, who were last year's intermediate champions, they had a good win over the Nail. It was 3-10 to 1-7. Westport, obviously home of Lee Keegan, had a good win over Ballintubber. Keegan and Finbar McLaughlin fired the goals. And Ballintubber lost Killian O'Connor to a knee injury at half-time. So his fitness is going to be crucial over the next while. And their fortunes in the Mayo Championship will depend a lot on his fitness. Ahamore had a good win over Balladreen, 3-14 to 2-8. Goals there from Conor Byrne, Darren Duffy and Ross Egan. Briefy had a good win over Balla. It was Steve McDermott's tally of 1-3 that proved crucial. And probably the biggest, the big result there was Ballina Stephenites 3-9, Knockmore 11 points. Knockmore obviously chasing 3 in a row. They're in a small bit of bother. They can still turn things around, but they're in a small bit of bother. So goals from Dylan Thornton, Evan Regan and Conor McStay helped Ballina to a 7-point win here. And this leaves Ray Dempsey's Knockmore having to win their next match to stay in the race for the Moyclair Cup. So crucial round 3 match there. Clare Morris 13, Belmullet 1-8. Charlestown Sarsfields 1-14, Gary Moore 17. Paul Towie hit 10 points for Charlestown. And Castlebar Mitchell's 17 points, the Davits 2-9. I'll fly through Offaly as well because I saw bits and pieces of these games over the weekend. So it's a Road Tullamore final again. This is Road's 11th successive county final. Absolutely, like an amazing club. You're talking about rural versus town. It's actually rural as you can get in Road, facing as town as you can get in Tullamore in the county final. But Road, like, this squad over the past probably 15 plus years even, like, they've just eked nearly everything they possibly can out of them. Very unfortunate, obviously, not to win a Leinster title. As I mentioned earlier, they came through on penalties against Ferban. It finished Road 17, Ferban 1-14. I think it was 12 points to 1-9 at the end of normal time. Niall McNamee kicked a free to level it, and road keeper Ken Gary was the hero saving the final penalty. And as I said, it's 2 years in a row that Ferban have been beaten on penalties in semi-final, which is an absolute sickener for them. And in the other semi-final, Tullamore 1-14, Eden Derry 10 points, Diarmuid Egan with a late goal there. And this sets up a repeat of last year's county final, but also, like, it was probably seen last year when Tullamore beat Road after a replay that it might have been a bit of a changing of the guard. And I do think Tullamore will dominate over the coming years, but Road will definitely be trying to halt that changing of the guard somewhat. They're reaching the end of a cycle that has produced so much. If they could get one more county title out of this group, it would be absolutely huge for them. But Tullamore probably will go into that final as favourites, I'd say. And outside of Kilmacud, would fancy their chances probably in Leinster next year. They were obviously beaten by Naas by a last-minute goal in a quarter-final, I think, last year. So they'd fancy their chances in Leinster if they can get overawed in a county final.
Yeah, and I suppose the Antrim Championship highlighted how in some places over the weekend the conditions were fairly testing. Jerome Quinn is doing commentary on this. It was, this is quite something when you look at it. Actually, I'll play his commentary as well.
Well in the conditions, there's some pressure coming in from Craig.
Really, should a game like that be going ahead?
Probably not.
Just play the game. Look at the splash. The water sitting on the ground.
The cheek of him to go for the little chip up and all.
Do you know what they need to play there? You know that song?
They're playing with the tide in the second half. There's a chance of a goal. Brilliantly saved. What an effort.
So, the state of it.
Brutal. You're hoping probably that everybody's going to come through without some sort of a mad injury. Because if you go sliding or something like that for a ball, easily do your knee, easily break a leg. It's like more like water polo probably than a football game, realistically. Water polo that e-boys surely playing Dalkey. So I definitely am the muck savage.
Craigan beat O'Donovan Rossa in that game, 1-8 to 6 points. The other results, Carrigan beat Love Jarrick 13-9, Roger Caseman's Port Glenone 1-15, Gurtin Amona 6 points, St. Mary Hagallen 14 points, Nave Breed 7. The Armagh Football Championship round 1 was over the weekend. Crossmaglen beat Silver Bridge on TV 119 to 211, and you have that comment up there that you might go through.
Yeah, just from the JMac podcast, and he's right. Keane McConville, unbelievable for Cross yesterday. His pass for the goal, a thing of beauty. Classy player. Cross will need to improve. O'Neill kicks some beauties also. The ball, to play a ball across the defense, the attacker's actually in behind the defender.
It was lovely.
The defender can see everything that's going on, and he still takes him out of the game with an absolute peach of a pass. Some talk and speculation that Jamie Clark wasn't allowed to be involved with Cross yesterday in a playing capacity due to his playing duties with Newry City AFC in one of the Northern Ireland soccer leagues. Not sure of the validity of that, but that is the general kind of talk. And just something else I'll just throw in quickly about one of the Northern teams, and I tweeted it yesterday. The JMac podcast has it as well. Stephen O'Neill on fire for Tyrone Masters. Class is permanent. He gets a free just outside the 45 and as nonchalantly as you like outside of the left foot just puts it straight over. His left foot, we're talking about left footers recently, Kieran McDonald's left foot. There's very few players that can just do that. And especially at 41, your mobility is not the same as it is in your 20s or even your early 30s, and just bang over the bar. They beat Dublin in the Masters final at the weekend.
Yeah, Cross were 6 behind. Jared O'Burns was lording it, and Cross won it by 5. And during the game, I was wondering, is that Jared O'Burns who's playing wearing number 15 for Silverbridge? And is that his father who was commentating? Now, I think it was. Somebody might comment and let us know for sure if it was. But it's not like I have an unblemished record when it comes to recognising who commentators were. I was watching a little bit, all of J.K. Bracken's against Nina. And after a few seconds, I was like, do I know that co-commentary voice? And it took a few more seconds and lines for the penny to drop that it was my own brother. So there you go.
Jesus, it's a bad sign if you wouldn't know that voice and you have to listen to it for the last 30 years. Jesus Christ.
So go through some of the other results there. Grainmore beat Pearse Oak 110-10. Killevy's off Madden 212-14. Ballymacnabb beat St. Patrick's 114-13. Mahery had too much for Armagh Harps 112-12. Naomh Patrick Drum and T 3-8. Sarsfields 1-9. Clonagale 13. Carrick Cruppen 1-8. And Mullabone beat Clonairin 1-9 points. Mullabone being the original club of Kieran McGeeney. Clonairin were the champions last year, so the champs are out. They were missing the suspended Tiernan Kelly, so I presume that's still for the gouging incident with the Armagh Galway clash in the All-Ireland quarter-final. But that's Clonairin out, so I'd say everyone in Armagh all of a sudden feels like they have an opportunity.
Yeah, Nisha is hitting the nail on the head here. He just says, in reference to you, hard for you to recognise voices when you listen to nobody. Ignorance is bliss, boy. Very, very true. And I haven't read this comment, but I'm just going to read it out here. Richard Hogan, as Tiger Conor Moore would say, conditions are really tough out there. Really tough.
Really tough. Really tough out there.
Just, I think Conor Moore is on tour at the moment as well, and like he has to be one of the funniest men alive, I'd say, at the moment. His repertoire is unrivaled, I would say.
He's very, very good. The Derry Football Championship round 3 saw Schlockneil beat Ballinderry. Triple scores there, 18-6. Sean O'Leary saw Steelstown Brian Oak, who are the All-Ireland Intermediate Champions, 1-9 to 1-7. Owen Rua 10, The Loop 7 points. Banner 13, John Mitchell's 1-8. Ballinascreen beat O'Donovan Rossa 112 to 9. Kilray had too much for Balahi 18 to 10, so very little in that. Labby beat Dungiven 110 to 9, and the Glen, who won the Derry Championship last year, 14 points, 1-9 to Swatra. And Michael McMullen was tweeting the top scorers in the championship there. Larkin Williams has 316, ahead of Shane McGuigan, which is no mean feat, 313. Conor Murphy 118, Christopher Bradley 116, and he continues the list, but that's just the top number. Do you want to go through the Galway Championship there?
Yeah, I'll fly through Galway and Laois. Yeah, round 4, the Galway Senior Football Championship. Cardiff Strand and St. Michael's finished level, 10 points apiece. Capiche. Clare Galway beat Killannon 310 to 210. Damien Comers and Down had a good win over on Cahararua, 111 to 10. Littermore and Uachtarard drew was 12 points to 1-9. Mount Bellew, my law, I should say, 116. Barna 6 points. Salt Hill Knocknacara, John O'Mahony's Salt Hill Knocknacara with Rob Finnerty driving them forward. Finished 115 to 11-point winners over St. James's, who was obviously led by Paul Conroy. Monavea Abbey 310, Milltown 1-9, and Mike Cullen had a 15 points to 6 win over Tuam Stars. Mike Cullen flying it also in the Galway Senior Hurling Championship, in the B Championship. I think they're nearly short of a quarter-final place. So they have there's another dual club flying it. There's a good few kind of dual clubs. There definitely a lot more of them than there would have been before anyway. And both prospering in both codes. Just look at Laois really quickly as well. The Laois Senior Football Championship quarterfinals. Port Laois had a fairly comprehensive win over Clonaslee St. Manmans. It was 15 points to 6. O'Dempsey's 310. St. Joseph's 113. St. Joseph's obviously, I think Mick Dempsey is still involved there with St. Joseph's. Courtwood 111. Greg Cullen 11 points. And Port Harlington, who were chasing 3 in a row, had a 2-9 to a 111 win over Ballyroan. So Martin Murphy, who's obviously involved with Port Harlington, has been linked with a coaching role under Liam Kearns with Offaly, but I'm sure all eyes are focused on a possible 3 in a row before then. And it's going to be a battle of the ports in the last 4. Port Harlington against Port Laois and O'Dempsey's against Courtwood. And then on the other end of the scale in Laois, you had a relegation final. Kileshan 15 points, Ballylenan 8. So Ballylenan gone down to intermediate ranks. This will be my parting shot, Shane, because I have to go now. I'm going to have to leave you fly solo. But the Dublin Ladies Football Championship has definitely seen a bit of a change in the regard, because the dominance of Foxrock Cabinteely is over. So they've been 7 years they've reigned as champions in Dublin's Ladies Football Championship, but they were beaten at the weekend by St. Sylvester's 19 to 11. So their 8 in a row bid has come a cropper. And Sinead Ahern, who we'd all know from the Dublin Ladies football team, was one of the big players for St. Sylvester. She kicked 7 points, 5 from frees, and they were missing Nicole Owens and Niamh McAvoy. And are going to be missing Niamh McAvoy, I think, after she had a baby this summer. So, and it should be noted, obviously, as well, the Foxrock Cabinteely are missing Sinead Goldrick, who is, such a big player for Dublin, let alone her club. And this is probably one of the consequences of the AFLW season starting an awful lot earlier.
Okay, right. So we'll chat to you later on. Flash says, great stuff from you today, Verney. Shane going to bring the show down the home straight solo. Yeah, we'll see how I get on. Right, we'll chat to you later on. So I'm going to take us home from here. And, Eileen Troy is saying to me on Twitter here that she knew my brother's voice straight away when I didn't. He sounds exactly like you. Yeah, well, I suppose, makes sense, wouldn't it, really? So going through the Carlow Football Championship, Palatine, they beat Old Leckland by 114 to 3-8. Balnabrana 1-5, Éire Óg 325. So Éire Óg going for 5 in a row there last year before being thwarted by Rathvilly. Bagnallstown Gales 1-5, Tinryland 11, and Mount Leinster Rangers 3-7, Rathvilly 1-9. Down, Carryduff beat Glen 3-9 to 8. Loughlin Island beat Warren Point 14 points to 11. Clonduff 112, Bryansford 8. Castlewellan 2-7, Breda just 1-3, and then the Burren had a 2-3 to 3 points win over Downpatrick. Pretty low score and fair there. A total of 8 scores in a match. Have we come across a game that's had fewer than that in recent times? There's obviously a few clubs who've been hammered, but when you see, and get a low score, but when you see 2 teams getting very low scores, yeah, it must have been horrendous conditions. In Fermanagh, round 1, Kinawley 112 against 10 points of Rosslea. Enniskillen 111, Ederney 10 points. Derryganeely Harps 117, Timor 1-8. Derryganeely have won 6 of the last 7. They were dominant here. And Ballinalec 1-5, Erin Gales 8 points. That was a draw. Kildare relegation final, Confey beat Round Towers by 5 points. In Leitrim, Ballinamore put up 4-9 to Glen Hamilton's 1-13, so that's a narrow win there for Ballinamore. Melvin Gales 3-12, Dromahire 112, St Mary's 2-16, Gertletra 8, Leitrim Gales 14, Fina St Colleen's, or is it Caleens 2-9, Moyle 5-10, Aquawillan 18 points. Richard Hogan says, serious in Kilkenny next weekend. Knockout begins. Glenmore versus Ballyhale fixed for Nolan Park. TJ versus Scruff, probably on TV. In Sligo, Drumcliff Ross's points 7-11. That's a big score against St. Farnan's 8. Turles Strand have obviously won so much in recent years. 115, Cooler Strand Hill 112, so 3-point win. Shamrock Gales saw off Tubbercurry with minimum fuss, 120-8. St Mary's beat Colliery St Joseph's by 3 points. In Westmeath, Terrells Pass 114, Colliery 110, so that was a quarter-final, led by the inter-county stars Nigel Hart and Jamie Canood. From the 40th minute, Terrells Pass rallied and hit their opponents with 1-4, including a well-crafted goal from Dean McNicholas, and a fancied Colliery side who were therefore in control for long stretches of the game. They were under pressure. Losing Damien Dolan to injury didn't help their cause, while Terrells Pass had that little bit more quality coming off the bench. Killucan, they also beat Carlstown Killigad 1-9-11, so just a minimum in that one in the other quarter-final. In Wexford, finally, St. James's 1-9, Sarsfield's 1-6, Gusarans, O'Reilly's 3-13, 1-5 for St. Martin's. Crossabeg, Ballymurn put up 5-6 against Kilnairns, 1-6. Shelmaliers 21, Halfway House Bunclody 1-4. Glenbarntown 1-7, Castletown 1-4, and St. Anne's Rathangan 1-11, Starlights 11. So that's pretty much it for the show here. If you have any last-second comments, get them in. But that's pretty much it for the show. We'll obviously have our other show on Thursday this week. A reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame, you get 15% off. Absolutely brilliant site with all sorts of zip-up tops and jerseys from all of the different generations and all the different counties. A reminder, we've got that UCD coaching clinic coming up on Friday, 7:30 out of UCD Sports Ground. 40 quid, and there'll be 3 45-minute sessions with Martin Fogarty, Kieran Carey and Matty Kenny. It's going to be an absolutely brilliant one. By the way, Michael Verney wanted to show this great photo of Kyle Hayes. We were supposed to bring it up during the chat about Sundaimo Palace Kenry. It's just got that old school look there without the old face guard. So that's it for the show. We'll see you again on Thursday, hopefully. Don't forget to subscribe on all the different social channels. And thanks again for the great stuff from yourself and Bernie again. Appreciate the brilliant coverage of the club action. No hassle at all, so appreciate people supporting us. I love me county, says Sean O'Sullivan. I think we did mention this, Jack, that Clongish won the Longford Championship as well in the hurling this weekend. So that's it from the show. We'll see you all again on Thursday.